In early 1989, famous animation director David Silverman drew this very picture. It contains a relic of the past. No, not 30-year-old coffee. Rather, some of the earliest depictions of Simpsons characters from the show's first season. These 5 can be spotted waiting for the bus in the original opening credits. Removed from the show after just 10 episodes, the nameless characters are notable because they're among few things ever cut from The Simpsons opening. With over 700 episodes to date, there are more intros with that circus line couch gag than there are these faces. Now, it's no mystery why these characters disappeared. DVD commentary reveals the segment was cut to save time. It was replaced with a shorter shot of more recognizable Springfieldians come Season 2. Well, that, and these characters break the rules. Rules that were created after the Season 1 intro was already animated. Whoops. These internal guidelines tell Simpsons animators to no longer draw hair like this, arms like these, and eyes doing that. This is what the bus stop bunch might look like if they were still on the show today. These commissioned illustrations follow many of the rules of modern Simpsons character drawing. Today, this rulebook spans hundreds of pages, and down the rabbit hole we go. Behind the bus stop is a world of art, science, and math. It's a place where complex ideas are broken down into simple parts, then arranged in ways so delicate that just a few little line changes can sway our emotions. Or in other words, I just think they're neat. So let's investigate these characters, to figure out which rules they follow, and more fun, which rules they retroactively break. It's time to explore the no-no sheets. April 1991 saw the debut of Simpsons Illustrated. A companion magazine to the show, it only ran for 10 issues, but it certainly left behind a legacy. Its premiere issue contains an interview with David Silverman and former Simpsons animation director Wes Archer. The interview features Archer's now famous image entitled Simpson No-Nos, giving the do's and don'ts of drawing character facial expressions. Don't draw characters cross-eyed, don't complete the circles for the eyelids, and don't make smiles pointy. Pretty mild stuff, but just the tip of the iceberg. These rules come from large style guides created throughout the 1990s, as the show was finding its footing. Style guides are references for animators, so they draw characters the same way every time. The entirety of the Simpsons style guides are not available to the general public, but bits and pieces have surfaced over the years. The Simpsons Production Art Twitter account has done a great job cataloging many of these sheets, as have books like Cartooning with the Simpsons and The Simpsons Handbook, Secret Tips from the Pros. Funny enough, many of the rules were penned by David Silverman himself, meaning he brought the bus stop characters into this world, and he helped take them out. When the 30th anniversary of Simpsons Illustrated arrived in April 2021, Wes Archer combined many of the no-nos into one drawing. The eyes in particular are unsettling, so let's start there. Lisa's eyes break one of the most fundamental rules. Don't draw cross-eyed characters. Characters can be drawn a bit wall-eyed, but never, underline, cross-eyed. Sorry, Quigley. This rule was established to prevent the show from looking like a cute Saturday morning cartoon. Drawing a character wall-eyed, however, is a staple of series creator Matt Groening's art style. Used less frequently nowadays, wall eyes are a simple but effective way to enhance a range of emotions, from confusion to excitement. Quoting a no-no sheet, The Simpsons do a lot of blank, vacant staring as stuff is being explained to them or done to them. The humor is often that you can't tell what's going on in their tiny little minds as events are happening, and then they react. Knowing the difference between wall-eyed and cross-eyed, we arrive at eye crime number 1. The bus stop has some rule-breaking pupils, though only partially. The shapes are nice and round, and the sizes check out. I learned that the pupil-to-eye ratio should be approximately 7:1. Too small, Bart believes in conspiracy theories. Too large, Homer's a buzzkill. You can spot large pupils all over the early seasons, before the ratio was codified. Sticking with the eyes, eyelids adhere to the original rule sheet, no circles. This was corrected sometime between layout and animation. The blinking, however, does not follow the standard 4-frame cycle. In the Simpsons universe, both the top and bottom eyelids should meet in the middle. Unless you're Milhouse. Nobody's like Milhouse. Though Silverman's original drawing gave a couple characters those special eyes. It's an unusual sight in Springfield, almost as unusual as seeing more than 4 eyelashes per eye. Only 2 people at the bus stop have eyelashes, and they pass most relevant tests, though left's placement is a bit off. It's easy to overlook this attribute, even though eyelashes help define a character. For instance, Lisa and Maggie have their mother's lashes, but Maggie has fewer because she's a baby. When it comes to eye placement, I thought we had more rule breaking going on, but it was a false alarm. See, there's, quote, a needling problem with eyes that annoys directors to no end. No one-point tangents. Either eyes overlap clearly or they are separated clearly, unless the character is wearing glasses. Well, these eyes are barely touching, and so are these. Then I kept reading. Do not pose them in this in-between drawing stage. In-between drawing being the key words. These one-point tangents exist only for a few frames of animation, when the characters are in between their standing and running stages. You would need to pause the show at just the right time to even notice. But we'll be coming back to these topics later. For now, we've covered the eyes, unlike this character's hair. Transitioning to the hair, and we have some major rule violations. Quote, do not design incidental characters that have these elements. 1. Hair and head the same, and 2. Homer beard line. In other words, don't out-Simpson the Simpsons. A couple people at the bus stop have Homer beards, and these 2 have their hair color matching their heads. There are even more broken rules if we include the bus driver and passengers, which we should, because the bus was meant to be studied. See, The Simpsons was often referred to as the first VCR television show, meaning that it debuted around time US adoption of the technology was booming. Crew members would occasionally hide blink and you miss it jokes in the show to reward those with the ability to pause. One of the very first of these freeze frame Easter eggs is the Duff sign on the bus. You were encouraged to pause the show when the bus appeared. We can thank VCRs for replacing this simple shot of Lisa in the Season 1 opening credits with this sprawling shot of Springfield in Season 2. Back to the hair. This character's hair may not have always been head-colored. Silverman's original drawing gave him a different hairdo, something closer to maybe Kent Brockman? Regardless, the new and improved designs fix any hair issues. Head-colored hair was dyed, and when it comes to facial hair, one character grew a fluffier beard, and the other went with a clean shave, resembling a distant cousin of Barney, perhaps? Speaking of relatives, quite a few of Homer's family members share his signature beard line. And Krusty the Clown's makeup bears a resemblance because, fun fact, Krusty was originally planned to be Homer in disguise. This plan fell through early on though, and the makeup is a holdover. Fast forward to Season 7, and Lester and Eliza also look like they break hair rules, but they deliberately out-Simpson the Simpsons, so they get a pass as well. Most of the other hair rules I found are character specific, like how many loops are in Marge's hair, or how many palm leaves Sideshow Bob has. My takeaway is that hairdos are explicitly defined. Even seemingly messy hair, like Barney's, is constructed using 13 specific points. This squiggly hair doesn't look like it's following any particular criteria. The number of loops changes several times. Then we have the character on the right. Her hair gains great detail after a head whip. Who is this fine-haired pedestrian, you ask? Well, I don't know, but she reminds me of Mrs. Gross. Mrs. Gross was a planned Season 1 character who would have served as Springfield Elementary's grumpy crossing guard. She was supposed to make her speaking debut in Episode 6, Moaning Lisa, but the scene was scrapped, and all that survives is the script. When Bart and Lisa go to cross the road and see oncoming traffic, they complain. Mrs. Gross hits them with a, "Don't tell me how to do my job." Underneath all that anger is a talented singer. Mrs. Gross was originally a performer in Season 4's A Streetcar Named Marge. This time, her character made it all the way to the animatic, but didn't make callbacks. She was replaced in the final animation. Missing the bus, once again. Moving on to the next section, can you figure out what's wrong with this drawing of Bart? Pause if you need to, it's subtle. The answer is the teeth. The drawing looks ever so slightly off because Bart's teeth are too vertical. They don't match the shape of his head. As far as we're concerned, there are 0 teeth at the bus stop. If mouth profiles were drawn with depth, we might be able to see something. And if we could see teeth, there are quite a few rules they'd need to follow. Teeth are emphasized all over the character sheets. When doing the teeth, you must have at least 3 lines in the smile. 4 lines is better than 3, 3 is the minimum amount. Don't draw teeth too small, and only use sharp teeth when directed, like in Last Exit to Springfield for comedic effect. This sharp-toothed Homer from the Tracy Ullman Show was years before the rule was established. It also retroactively breaks 2 additional rules. 1, never draw a line through the teeth, and 2, no demonic expressions. In the words of David Silverman, the Simpsons are not deliberately cruel or cunning. They often do cruel, and sometimes cunning things, but they don't plan to, they just react. They don't think, I'll do this and get back at them, nyahaha. Their minds don't work like that. They're impulsive, reacting to the situation immediately, without premeditation. If you're wondering why this rule was established, look no further than Season 1, Episode 4. Let's look at a friendlier face. Okay, good. Happy Bart. Quote, stop doing this cutesy, curved up happy eyeball line. This ain't Don Bluth. If they're laughing, maybe it's okay, but nowhere else. It's a little too precious. Don't over-emote, don't overact. This ties in with Groening's whole less is more approach to animation. Quote, keep things simple. Lots of cartoonists who should know better add complicated details to their drawings that merely clutter things up. You can convey space, motion, and feeling with surprisingly few lines. The Simpsons is a masterclass in this. Just a few small line changes can drastically alter the tone of a drawing. And I can think of no better time than now to bring up the face. A face so polarizing it's no longer used. A face so noteworthy it comes with a disclaimer. Note, do not use unless instructed to by director. A face known only as Twister Head. Twister Head was used a lot in the early years of The Simpsons. While it was occasionally used as an in-between frame for fast head turning, it was primarily used by Bart emphasizing certain words. Twister Head falls into the category of drawings known as accent drawings. Accent drawings aren't meant to be held very long, 1/12 of a second usually. They're brief, serving only to enhance an animation. Stretch Your Mouth is another accent drawing, and it too comes with a caution. We don't see many, if any, accent drawings at the bus stop. There are some exaggerated reactions, but nothing that looks like this, and that's okay. The fact so many accent drawings look unsettling is proof that the animators are following the rules. They're not overusing these. I'm reminded of this drawing by Jay Lender, SpongeBob SquarePants storyboard artist. For every one over-the-top expression, draw 100 normal expressions, at least. Twister Head would be phased out sometime around Season 8, coming back in Treehouse of Horror 25 when the Simpsons family meet their former selves. Continuing on with the bus stop faces, lips are well defined and not too pointy, with no signs of what is known as duck billing. Ears are drawn correctly, just the right amount of inner padding, and noses are positioned in usual ways. Cartooning with The Simpsons states pupils should not be hidden by the nose, but I'm hesitant to dock a point here. Guy just has a big nose. Large noses, or even pig-like noses for that matter, don't break the rules. Otherwise, Moe would need a rhinoplasty. Oh, they did that plot already? There are plenty more face-related rules, but they're not really applicable to the bus stop. Mostly because the characters never interact with one another. Like, there's this 30-page document just on how characters should look when talking to each other. Lip syncing's also an interesting topic, but alas, no dialogue. By the way, there's potentially a bunch of dialogue in the show that's gone undocumented. Lip readers, now's your time to shine. Quote, let's say you're dealing with a scene featuring characters standing in the distance talking. There's no recorded dialogue for what they are saying. They are too far away to hear. But now, we need to provide a bogus lip assignment for each character speaking. Here's your chance to write dialogue on The Simpsons. Now, for all we know, these background conversations could just be random mouth movements. But, in theory, one might be able to approximate dialogue using the more detailed mouth charts. I'm curious what jokes animators hid in the show, if any. Just not enough to reverse engineer it myself. Anybody? When it comes to clothing, I was hard-pressed to find rules. There's character-specific stuff, but no general guidelines, so I cross-referenced the Bus Stop Bunch against the characters listed on the Simpsons wiki, to see if there were any matching outfits. Plenty of characters wear open jackets with ties and dress pants. Silverman always envisioned this character with a large tie. I had trouble finding one so big, but radio host Birch Barlow's comes close. Red dresses and shoes are common in Springfield, as are outfits with ruffles around the neck. This look is a combination of what Smithers, Carl, and Kirk wear. Finding a shirt with buttons laid out precisely like this was surprisingly tricky, but then I found Shelbyville Abe. And lastly, maybe Mrs. Gross. She's hard to clothes shop for. I can find bathrobes and wizard robes that somewhat resemble what she's wearing, but not many characters wear dresses with a throwover. The best match might just be this woman from Principal and the Pauper, so while Mrs. Gross has rare clothing, it's not anything off-model or out of place. But the outfit is something you can only find in her closet, right beside the skeletons. Quote, underneath Homer is a thin guy trying to stay put. This bizarre exercise is to merely illustrate that all the Simpsons characters should be approached with human anatomy in mind. That is to say, they have elbows, wrists, knees, ankles, chests, rib cages, stomachs, and shoulders that rotate. You can build a Homer suit around this regular, well, somewhat regular, guy, which will correspond to the key features of his anatomy. The anatomy of the Bus Stop Bunch checks most of these boxes, though the woman in red lacks elbows, resembling these gag drawings by Wes Archer. Nitpicks aside, Simpsons characters have always been drawn with rather realistic human anatomy and proportions. Even some of the ridiculous Season 1 background characters follow these body principles. However, if this character existed nowadays, his stomach would likely be solid, not as soft and squishy, more circular. Simple circles are used to construct so many characters in the Simpsons universe, not just in terms of shape, but also scale. Ned is 5.5 head balls high, Marge's hair is twice the height of her head, and Maggie's head is 4.5 eyeballs tall. Speaking of little eyes, I spy a few hands posed with only 3 fingers, but this changes to the standard 4 once running starts. And when the running does start, we have some nice rounded joints, something emphasized all over the Simpsons handbook. I get it, animating a moving body is difficult. Quote, "These drawings of Bart are, in fact, from a little place we know called hell. How bad is this? Let me count the ways. 1. Oddly shaped Frankenstein head. 2. Stupid little grin. 3. Big butt. And 4. Dopey poses. Sorry, I can't take much more of this. If you find yourself drawing like this, start again. Do not turn into your director. He will brain you." Sounds harsh, but I've been cherry-picking these sheets. For every one strongly worded note, you get another saying how good of a job the team is doing overall. Here's a note with both frustration and praise. Quote, "This layout is from the depths of hell. The nurse is fairly okay, though her perspective is a bit flabby. With Bart, however, the question is, what's right with this drawing? The answer, nothing. It's just plain old bad. And now, through the hands of a good artist, heaven is achieved. Eric Stefani redid the layout for me, and I went from heaven to heaven. Notice the clarity in form and perspective. Also note how the hand is rendered. The nurse's expression is improved as well. And now the punchline, this scene was cut. At least practice makes perfect, is what I would say until my research led me to another cut scene, the Squirrel House. The Squirrel House is an unused shot of the Simpsons house from Treehouse of Horror 5. Allegedly, it took artist Lance Wilder a day and a half to draw all these squirrels. It was animated, but cut from the final episode because the squirrels were difficult to see on standard definition televisions. The line art was too dense. Wilder didn't want his effort to go to waste, however, so he used this drawing on personal greeting cards. The takeaway here is, again, don't add complicated details to your drawings, be it human bodies or squirrel bodies. The animators will thank you. Last but not least, let's look at the animation as a whole. Starting with color, we'll refer to this black and white 1989 promotional book. It contains a lot of neat stuff, like a copy of the original Simpsons typeface, the rarely used Simpsons logo, and it gives us the specific Pantone colors of some characters. The iconic yellow matches, and the other colors can be found in the show's usual palette of approximately 200 base colors. The characters' clothing will change tones occasionally, but that's just cell animation for you. Minor blemishes are bound to pop up because each and every one of these frames was hand-painted. How many frames are we looking at? Well, we only get to spend roughly 5 seconds with the Bus Stop Bunch. At 24 frames per second, they're visible on screen for approximately 130 frames of animation. Let's break down what they do during this time. The first 60 or so frames see them posed idly, waiting for the bus. This is an image we should be quite familiar with at this point. Bart skates by, stealing the retro bus stop sign and this guy's buttons. The characters are appalled. Remember in between frames from earlier? Yeah, there aren't any of those here. The characters jump from one pose to another like they've been electrocuted. It's rather jarring for The Simpsons. But credit where credit is due, these poses follow the advice of Simpsons animator Eric Tran, who says that a good pose can be read only as a silhouette, and even without color, some of these characters are clearly surprised. The next 8 frames of animation are great. Kudos to animators Craig Clark and Kevin Petrolak. You can really get a feel of the characters' weight as they collectively lean back in anticipation of darting forward. Some of the 12 principles of animation are on full display here. We have squash and stretch, exaggeration, anticipation, and follow-through. After the lean back, the bunch runs left and our eyes follow them, much to the delight of Simpsons storyboard artist Chris Roman. In Storyboarding the Simpsons Way, Roman shares his tips and tricks of how to successfully compose a Simpsons scene. He gives advice such as, don't cut off heads in the frame, show at least 3 planes in a room, and if two scenes happen in the same locale, why break them up? The latter is used a lot during the opening. We transition from Homer, to Bart, to the bus stop, to Marge and Maggie, all without cutting away. There's even a fourth, well-hidden cut when the characters run past this tree. They're running down a road different from the one we saw just moments prior. Moses moved into the background to pave way for the road. One side effect of not breaking up this long shot is that our eyes move from left to right, then right to left, then left to right again. It all happens pretty seamlessly, but Season 2 fixes this back and forth by keeping the camera moving the same direction the whole scene. Just an observation. Finally, we have the 8-frame run cycle. It's well animated and is comparable to references. But does it break a rule? The document, Miscellaneous Timing Notes, provides animators detailed information on how to properly time their animations. When animating a crowd of people laughing, note, everyone laughs but not in unison. Each person should be in a different laugh cycle than the person next to them. When animating a crowd of people clapping, note, everyone claps but not in unison. Each person should be in a different clap cycle than the person next to them. So, does this mean each person should be in a different run cycle than the person next to them? I couldn't find anything on that. Though, in the context of the bus stop, I believe having the bunch run in unison is a deliberate stylistic choice. These characters exist not as individuals, but rather as a group. They stand still together, they act shocked together, and they lean back together. So it only makes sense they run away together. Out of frame, never to be seen again.
I have to go now. My planet needs me.
Our investigation into the Simpsons' missing bus stop has concluded. I hope you enjoyed this look into the show's style guides. A big thank you to the crew members and fans that made this exploration possible. Their archival efforts cannot be overstated. You might be happy to learn other animated series, like King of the Hill, have their own no-sheet equivalents floating around online. When it comes to the bus stop bunch, it's those small, seemingly insignificant details that break the rules. But as we've learned in animation, nothing is insignificant. Every step, every blink, every line is deliberate. It takes the talents of many people to produce just 1 second of Simpsons animation. Rules exist for consistency and higher quality results. And every once in a while, it's okay to break those rules. To quote Matt Groening one last time, the rules were invented so a lot of professional artists, designers, and animators could make the characters look the same way every time. But I've rarely followed those rules myself. I draw by instinct, and that's how I originally designed the characters, without any rules in mind. Appearing in just 10 Simpsons episodes, the bus stop is something that's tucked away in the corner, yet unforgettable once you notice. A coffee stain on a drawing.